The article starts off today by saying UFOs, or unidentified flying objects, as we explained before, have been reported for decades.
Right.
Unidentified, in this case, means we don't know what it is. So people will see a flying saucer up in the sky, and we don't know what that is because we don't have anything like that.
It's not a plane, it's not a bird, it's not a cloud, it's not a balloon or a helicopter. So what is it?
It's unidentified.
We don't know.
And it's flying, so unidentified flying objects, they've been reported for decades. A decade, of course, is a period of 10 years. So the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, those are all decades. 2000 to 2010, those are the aughts.
If you're 10 years old, you've been alive for a decade.
Yes.
Well done.
Very good. So, unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, people have been reporting them. So, calling the police and saying, I just saw some weird thing up in the sky. I think it's a UFO. I think it's aliens.
Yep.
They've been reporting it.
That's right.
For decades. So for a very long time.
And as the article continues, most people link them to alien life forms. If you ask someone, where do UFOs come from, or who made them, or who's inside them, most people would link them to alien life forms, or aliens. Anything that is alien is basically not from this world or not from this place. For example, if you took an elephant from Africa and then let it loose in Canada, that would be an alien animal. It's not from another planet, but it's certainly not from Canada. And if there's a life form that's not on Earth, it's from the moon or Mars or some other planet, we would also call that an alien life form. Anything from a tiny little thing growing on a rock to a large, gray, black-eyed, three-fingered, weird alien type thing. All of those would be alien just because they're not from here. This is not their natural habitat. And a life form is, well, anything that's alive, basically. If you link A to B, that means you make a connection there between this and that. For example, if someone's really angry in the afternoon, you might link that to they didn't have lunch. That's why they're in a bad mood in the afternoon, because they're very hungry. So there's a connection. There's some sort of relationship between this and that. In this case, between UFOs and the aliens who are flying them around.
Now, UFO researchers are looking back at famous UFO sightings.
Famous UFO sightings.
Yes, a sighting is when somebody sees something.
Yes.
Okay? They see a flying saucer up in the sky and they report it.
Right.
And that's called a sighting. They saw something. Now, people are looking back at some of these famous sightings. Okay? If you look back, it means you're looking into the past, into things that have happened before. And they're looking at famous sightings. Famous meaning, of course, very well known, things that a lot of people know about. So, of course, when there is a UFO sighting, if it gets on the news, or if it makes it into any form of media, it becomes very famous right away. And people are very interested in this sort of thing because it's one of the great questions. Is there not only life, but intelligent life out there in space, capable of building flying saucers that could travel through space and enter our atmosphere and land on our planet and all of those sorts of things. So that's why it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. As the article continues, their work is also the focus of Discovery's show, UFOs Declassified. So the work of these researchers who've looked back on some of these famous sightings is the topic of this show. Let's look at one of the famous sightings. It says the year is 1942. Okay, so this is 70 or so years ago. The U.S. has just entered World War II, and it has been 3 months since the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. So there you go. That's the situation that we're setting up for you. It's the middle of World War II. Just a few months earlier, in December of 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, where they blew up a bunch of boats in the harbor in Hawaii. A harbor is basically just a place where boats can go and park that's safely inland, so they're protected from storms and things like that. So, okay, we know about the Japanese attack. That was the Japanese. That wasn't UFOs.
Definitely not.
I saw that terrible Ben Affleck movie. I know.
Yeah. That's most people know it because of the Ben Affleck movie.
Sure. It's also extremely famous. But, okay, so this happened after that. So what was with the UFOs?
Well, many people believed a new Japanese attack was taking place on February 24th in Los Angeles.
Oh, really?
Okay, this I never heard about.
No.
Of course, everybody knows Pearl Harbor. But then on February 24th, they thought another Japanese attack was taking place in Los Angeles, so in California, on the west coast of the United States. They thought an attack was taking place. To take place is another way of saying something is happening.
Right.
So there was obviously something going on. I guess probably something up in the sky.
Japanese planes flying and dropping bombs on LA.
People saw something up there that made them think the Japanese were attacking.
It says that's because they saw lights in the sky. Okay, so they saw some strange lights in the sky. A lot of people thought, oh, those must be planes coming to attack us. Often when people do see lights in the sky and they don't know what it is a UFO, an unidentified flying object. So they see these lights, everyone's very nervous because a lot of people were actually expecting the Japanese to attack America on the west coast of California, right? Maybe Seattle, San Francisco, LA. So what happened then?
Sirens went off and the city turned off its electricity.
Oh my gosh.
Sirens are those loud noises that you'll hear like when a police car is chasing somebody down the street or an ambulance or a fire truck. That's what a siren is. We also hear them, we have sometimes in Taiwan, we have those drills or those exercises and you hear this and everybody is supposed to get off the streets.
That's right.
That's an air raid, and that's a siren, the noise that Mike just made.
Just a big loud noise to warn you of some kind of danger.
And when we hear a siren, we often say that it goes off. The siren goes off. It just means it starts making that noise.
Like an alarm clock in the morning, too. It goes off.
It goes off. When we describe a sort of loud or noisy sound, we often talk about it going off. That's how we introduce the sound. Okay, so what happened was they turned off the electricity.
Wow.
That's what they do in cities, or what they used to do anyway, when they thought they were going to be attacked from the sky. When they thought planes were going to come in and drop bombs on the city, they would turn off the electricity so it would be difficult for the planes to see.
The city is dark.
The city's dark, so they wouldn't be able to see which buildings they were supposed to be targeting or dropping the bombs on. So they would just go completely dark to just try to hide, basically.
Right, and at the time, as we should mention, the fear level was very high in America, so people didn't think this was a joke. They thought it was real. In the early morning, the U.S. Army began firing into the sky. Those big guns that can shoot down airplanes and that kind of thing. All in all, they fired more than 1,400 shells. Oh wow,
that's serious.
They took it very seriously. So all in all, I mean, sort of at the end of the day, if you add up all of the guns that were shooting on that morning, on that day, the total was 1,400 shells. Notice we say shells here. When big guns fire, they don't fire bullets. Those are the little things that handguns or rifles would fire. A big gun, like in a tank or in a big boat or something, or a big gun shooting at airplanes would fire a shell. It's basically a big bullet.
The firing continued until shortly after 4 a.m. So
what a terrible way to wake up.
That's a long night
Jeez.
of guns going off all the time. Shortly after 4 a.m. Shortly here means not long after. Not long after 4 a.m. So it wouldn't have been close to 5 a.m., it would have been closer to 4 a.m. So maybe, 4:10, 4:15, somewhere around there. Not long past 4 a.m. or shortly after 4 a.m.
And you can imagine when there's a lot of fear, when all the electricity gets turned off and big guns are shooting, people can get hurt. And the article says it also caused 6 civilian deaths. So these weren't people killed by Japanese bombs or soldiers killed in fighting. Civilians or normal people like you and me, men, women, children, not in the army. And 6 people died. How did they die?
3 died in car accidents. Okay, so I guess there was probably a lot of panic.
Yep.
People were probably trying to get out of the city, maybe driving very fast.
All the street lights are off.
Yes, driving recklessly perhaps. Yep. So there were car accidents. Cars, vehicles ran into each other. Unfortunately, 3 people died that way. And 3 died in car accidents as a result of the shooting, and 3 more had heart attacks.
Oh, just from being scared.
Being scared, perhaps elderly people. A heart attack is when basically your heart just stops beating. There are a number of different causes for it. One of them, though, usually if you're elderly, is if you receive some sort of scare.
A shock.
Or you're very frightened. It can lead to a heart attack. It says they died as a result of the shooting. We saw the phrase as a result of something, okay? It just means something caused something else. The shooting started happening. They were firing those 1,400 shells up into the sky, and that was the cause of these deaths.
I guess, when the shells go up, they have to come down, and people can get hurt that way. As a result of is very similar to because of. Now, the article says, hours after the attack, the U.S. military said the event was a false alarm. So hours after it started, and the Army and the Navy and all the people were able to get some airplanes up there and check it out, they said that it was a false alarm. This is from the military. The military is basically the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, all the people in uniform with guns and weapons who protect the country from foreign threats and things like that. They said, don't worry everyone, it was a false alarm. A false alarm is when you think something bad is happening, you might run around and tell everyone, then it turns out you got your facts kind of mixed up or you got more information. Turns out it's okay, it wasn't anything bad.
False alarm is our shortcut for you for today, so let's learn a little bit more about this phrase.